like I kind of look young, but I got like I'm starting to lose my hair on top. So like like middle age, it doesn't show up all at once. It shows up in spots.
It's funny. A couple of weeks ago, I shaved. I had this longer beard, and I shaved, and I got hell for it. Hell for it because I looked like I was in high school again.
Yeah. So I'm saying like like that 40-year-old look. It doesn't show up all at once. It shows up in like in spots.
Yeah.
All right, we're live this hour, joined by Vincent Cooper, who is a poet, an author. Very, very excited to have him with us today. So before we get started, getting into like your books, into like things that your publications, let's talk about how this journey began. Like, when did you start? When did you first want to be a writer?
I would say I was about 12 years old. One of my uncles had just passed away, and this was the only way I knew how to cope was to write it out because I grew up with a lot of people that are kind of like old school, rough kind of people, so I couldn't really express myself to them without being called gay or something, And I would write, and I just would write nonstop. That was my thing. And I wrote about them. I wrote about my family. I wrote about saving the earth type shit.
Yeah.
So I would say I was around 12 years old, and I just kept writing and writing and just keeping it to myself. And I didn't think it was ever going to go further than notebooks. I would fill up notebooks. I didn't do anything until, or at least seek publication until I was about 32 years old. So really, I was writing all through high school, all through my 20s, all through my marriages and divorces and the Marines. And I just kept writing until one day I was like, all right, I'm going to submit something. And since 32 to 39, it's been pretty cool seeing some of that work published.
So tell me a little bit, those early days. Can you tell us a little bit? Did you ever go to the Alhambra Library and like spin the wheel?
No.
Okay.
It's funny because I was born there, but I've lived here in San Antonio the majority of my life. I would say at least 26 years total. And but everybody still says I'm a kid from Alhambra. And as much as I love it out there, I've done everything here, So in Alhambra, I was there like at grade school. I didn't have anything as an adult there. Unfortunately, I would have loved to, but I lived in Vegas for high school, and then I moved. I've been in Texas pretty much ever since.
Yeah, no, the reason I ask is because you and I are about the same age, and like Iris Tianda, she's a poet out here, and we have stories about going to the library, expanding tickets to like 2 weeks from that, because we're from El Sereno, which is like the neighboring city, so like that's kind of so like a childhood memory is the library.
Man, I love it out there. I've always had this idea that I was going to move back and coach Little League and have my kids go to the same school that I did, and just didn't happen,
Well, so you're very much then a Texas poet. So let's talk a little bit about this kind of controversial question I've been talking about with a number of Texas poets. Where exactly does South Texas begin?
Oh, it's not San Antonio. It's south, and it's further south than that. It has to be the Valley for me. San Antonio and Austin are not South Texas. I don't care what people say. To me, when I think South Texas, can you see me or hear me?
There's a slight echo, so I mute myself while you're talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's the Valley. It's all the Valley there. So San Antonio, I think it's to itself. Houston is really to itself. I would never call any poets from Houston South Texas poets, never. They're Houston poets, Austin poets, San Antonio poets. If anything, South Texas, it would just be the Valley poets.
So tell us about, so you start getting really involved about 7 years ago. So, a lot of what we're doing here is trying to gather some like oral histories and just different, different insights in different places. So can you tell us about some of the venues you would frequent when you were first getting started?
Oh, yes. So back when like MySpace was still a thing. Um, I I was just back. I was living in Dallas area for a little bit in Irving, and then I moved here, and I'm like, all right, I want to know where the poetry scene is here. And I was familiar with Budo Slam from years prior. I had attended that, so I saw on MySpace. I like looked it up, and somehow this poet named Anthony the Poet came up, and he was really fucking good. He was just badass. So I messaged him right away, and I said, hey, I just show me the ropes type thing. And he like, yeah, come see me at this cafe on Guadalupe Street. I met up with him and another poet named Anastasio, who was really great too. And they were really cool guys, but they're spoken word poets. And I had no idea that there was spoken word and poets for the page or anything like that. So um, they were just on it. I mean, they were quick with it. They were shooting at the hip, and so the venues were kind of like wherever they would go or wherever Budo Slam was being held. It's been held at different venues. So I would love to say that there was one venue or two or three venues, but it was going through a transitionary period at the time. So I was literally just in the back seat or following them in the car to the next poetry gig or the next bar or the next whatever. And this happened for a little while. Then San Antonio became like Mondays was Budo Slam, Tuesdays was another poetry event, and there were coffee joints and bars mostly. Mm-hmm. So I would hit them up whenever I could. Wednesday was the Sun Poets, at a almost pharmacy or whatever. And so it would be some of those places, and I would get up every now and then and read a poem.
Yeah. You were actually, I think, you and I were published in the same anthology. Is that correct? You were in Bandits, right?
Yes.
So tell us
Santino Rivera.
Tell us.
Yeah, Santino. He's a son of a bitch. God. I love this dude, but damn it, man, he's so he doesn't love me back. But he was very cool. I don't know if you remember that time, like in Twitter when it was really hot and everybody was kind of just on this wave, and I had submitted a poem called Breakfast Tacos, and he dug it. He said he wanted it for the anthology, and I had submitted it somewhere else, but he said, fuck them, have it here. And that really helped a lot because, I mean, during this period, like, I didn't know. I mean, this was validation, really. This was something. And so I dug it. And then when I saw the final thing, I was like, holy shit, a lot of badasses are on this, And I still feel like it didn't get like the love or the exposure it really needed, So, but yeah, that was cool. I saw you there. And of course, Urea was on there too. I mean, he's my, dreamy teacher.
Yeah, I remember with Santino. We were cool, but then like I think I like I'm very ambitious, so I think I pressured him, or I tried to pressure him, it didn't work, because he was like trying to set up a C-SPAN thing with like Rudy Acuna and Urea, and I was like, get me on that, man, get me on that, it's a big chance for me, get me on that, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, like I really didn't justify. I still don't justify it, but like at the time, I definitely didn't justify it at that point in time. And so like he's like, no, it's just a big name for this one, and I'm like, hey, bro, you approached me, man. Right?
Yeah. So, dude, I was ready to buy a flight for that. I was telling everybody, dude, I might have to go over there and fly out and just show up and walk in there and see what he says, but it didn't work out.
You and I had the same idea. Like,
yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah, but yeah. So, is there any way you can share a poem with us?
Sure. All right. This is called Sandia. Bellon, Chateau, and me, waking up to burning bacon and eggs sizzling in a pan at the house on Potosi Street. A shirtless uncle is singing. Grandma is wrapping his tacos in a brown bag. He puts them in his pocket as he shuffles off. He was our Robin Hood on heroin. And we're in the bathroom taking turns brushing our teeth and washing our faces. I wait for them to finish, holding a bottle of Lucky Tiger lanolin. Elbowing our way into the kitchen, Grandpa stomps his foot and snaps his fingers, yelling in Spanish to behave and be quiet. Grandma serves papas con huevo on a small plate. The sooner we're done, the sooner we can go outside and play, or go across the street to Casiano Park and be free of chores for the day. We'll dare each other while exploring the arroyo filled with Pampers, grocery carts, fish, and beer bottles. Teenagers ditch class and meet under the bridge to smoke pot and lose their virginity. We sit and watch while drinking the big reds that an older junkie cousin dropped off in passing. We challenge each other all day long with our fists, legs, and brains. We go from friends to enemies, enemies to friends, just in time to see her wave us in from the house. There's sandia on the table, cut up into several pieces. We pass the salt and run back to the park like dogs with bones running away to be alone. Black seeds stuck on our cheeks, laughing at the mischievous things we did that day, and this was our reward. As the sun sets, we scare each other with stories of La Llorona sightings around the city. We talk about children pushing a car over some train tracks, too little too late. We slowly chase each other back to the house in ripped jeans, dirt sweat faces, exhausted. We shower together and laugh at each other's penises and go to our room. We'll stare out the window to see a woman in a white dress sitting on the middle swing, howling like a banshee. The sound of a train in the distance means it's time to go to sleep. I'll stay up looking at the moon and say to myself, I never want this to end. Another one? Or,
Yeah, it's another one. Yeah.
Sure.
Love it.
What's up? Let me see what's up here real quick. Okay. I was pretty sure I was getting criticized already. All right, this is called Beatrice. My mother's name. My mother. Uh, she's a funny lady. She's one of those, been talking about her death since we were kids, you know? And this is kind of how it goes. Just throw my ashes into a lake or ocean, a beautiful park or the mountains in California. I won't care or feel a thing. I don't want you or Louis to stress over it. My mother told my brother and I she wanted to be cremated because it's cheaper and better to go out that way instead of visiting a grave to leave flowers. Our glance shifts side to side like a Kit Kat clock in the kitchen. We were waiting for the turkey to be done, and we sat there and had to listen. We were young, and she wanted to talk about her death before football started. It was snowing, and we wanted to play outside with our cousins. Mom wants to get cremated. Check. 25 years later, Mijo, I've instructed Louis on what to do when I die. I want to be cremated, no ands, ifs, or buts. It's cheaper and a lot more convenient for you both. I'm doing it for you guys. But I want Louis to do it since he's fair and smart. You're too cabron. You may not fulfill my wishes. And should you interfere, well, I'll come back and haunt your ass. I won't interfere, but deep down I know, she knows, and the energies around us know. The sealed lips of our heroes know. Father Time, laughing at his watch, knows that she wants a valiant hospital stay, a great death with every character she's ever met, watching Louis and me draped over her, communing in her last breaths, with nurses making the signs of a cross, smiling with mocos, tears, and a fantastic mesquite smoke entrance into her next life. She will have a mole on her cheek again, long brown hair parted in the middle, a dimpled smile that cannot be erased. Louis and I will walk our separate ways, consoled by a sea of reddened eyeballs. Mother, you were always ready for death. thank you for having your paperwork in order.
Wow. So in 2015, you were published by Aztlan Libre Press with the chapbook "Where the Reckless Ones Come to Die." Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, 2014, like the Christmas time.
All right. So tell us about that experience, and tell us about yeah. First of all, tell us about the experience, because that would be like a year into writing, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So um, this came from Twitter. So same thing with like Ban This. I had met Anissa, who's Juan Tejada's wife, on Twitter, and Juan. And I saw that they had this press locally here in San Antonio. And they had some really cool stuff. And I had submitted the manuscript to them. And I actually had submitted my book, Sarsamora. It was a little different. It had like other poems, but it was pretty much that book. And I waited and waited, and I didn't think they were going to dig it until finally Anissa said, "Yeah, we're going to do it." So I was thrilled. I was fucking jumping up and down, and I had not yet talked to Juan at all. And I kept publishing poems from it, and I'm like, "What's going to happen here?" And finally, I met Juan, and so just so you guys know, Juan is pretty fucking cool. He's a very significant man, significant Chicano, and this city really owes him a lot. He's kind of a tough dude. He's not really easy, you know. He kind of smells bullshit. So he told me that he wanted to do a chapbook, and he was very happy to do it. And he explained like this whole idea he had, and I was sitting there like looking at my wife. I was like, "What the fuck is a chapbook?" And and I'm like, "Well, he said yes, he's publishing, so that's still good, right?" So he showed it to me, and he's like, "Well, we're only going to do 8 poems, and it looks really nice. It's cool, and it's like a." He sold it to me, right? And I remember sitting in the car going like, "What the fuck was wrong with the rest?" And then and I'm like, "All right, no, it's cool. He's gonna publish it." And then I didn't talk to him for a long time, like months. And then we met at his house, which is like about a mile from where I live now. And he showed me the cover. I didn't like it. I wanted this cover, which is actually a mural of Raul Salinas that was here in San Antonio. And Raul Salinas is actually, I didn't know that him and Juan were, you know, that they knew each other. So this was kind of cool as an homage to him as well. But the mural was there. The mural meant something to me as far as where my uncles were here in San Antonio. It didn't stay up that long, but we chose this cover. He did the cover, and then it came out. I had a book launch with Lorianne Guerrero and Ben Olguin, and that was it. Like, you know, after a while, like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do or what was going to happen, but it was published, and then like literally a month or two later, some guy bought the venue or the place where this was at and painted over it, like totally. And it wasn't because of the poetry, but you know, he just painted it, and everybody was pissed, and he just didn't care. He didn't even know what this was. He doesn't even know who Rose, you know, was or anything. So it was painted over. So this, the artist was Joe Cosme and I think Mary Agnes. Um, this isn't there. It's just not there. It's gone. So this is pretty much it where you're going to see it. So I'm happy that that was there. I'm happy that Juan did like a little unconscious, maybe homage to Raul Salinas, who he was real cool with. And I didn't know. You know, I honestly, I really thought Juan and I would be closer, but we're not. You know, he said he wanted to be a mentor. I mean, if there's somebody I would love to emulate, it's him and follow in his footsteps. But maybe my idea of the whole thing is different than his. You know, when we see each other, we're cool, everything's good. It's no thing. But I was hoping that we would have hung out more, and I could learn the ropes and really try to, you know, do an homage to him. But Otherwise, it's been wild, dude. This book has sold more than my full length book. Uh, it's it can be found more than my my book. So I mean, it's been good.
Yeah. Can you read us a poem from the collection?
Oof. Sure. All right. I haven't read this stuff since then. No, not that one. Oh, fuck it, that one. All right. This is called Sangre de Chicano. Growing up, people asked me if I was Italian, white, Boricua, black, Chinese, Native American, never a Chicano. I live in the Marvin Gardens section of the West Side, where the old schoolers can still hustle like they did those summers in the 70s. To them, I'm still a kid, but I feel the way they look, darkened by a ghetto sun and wasted from breathing moldy vario vapors. There is pain of the streets in my laughter, and if I ever cry, the tears pour out for everything and everyone, all the years, but you will only hear a hush, then a train passing by. My father's birth name is Orantes. He took the name Cooper after the white man that raised him. I've been a Chicano since day one, even in the womb of my mother, sobbing over a self-hating Hispanic. When they see me now, there is no doubt in their minds, no uncertainty in their hearts. I stare down Rottweilers that drool and bark viciously behind rotted wood fences, at pimps and whores who signal me over with a cigarette and Ozarka water bottle. Puercos mocosos scowl back with a plain red bounce ball that needs to be inflated. A crew of vicious high school dropouts with 210 or Spurs logo tattooed on their neck want drugs, money, sex, and blood. Old ladies smile, heading over to the church for bingo and barbecue plates. Chicano cops in their Crown Vics stare me down, viewing tattoos on my arms, making a judgment call. I'm an honorary West Side Chicano, walking toward you, walking through you. My legacy is being a tribute to the reckless ones who never wanted this for me and wished for me to stay in Hollywood to become a movie star.
So this poem actually, answers a question I wasn't gonna ask, which is the origin of the name Cooper. Is that
No, that's good.
is
So
that
I'm writing a memoir now. Uh, it's really weird, dude, because I've dealt with this question all my life. Um, and even when I met my dad, uh, I don't think it came up. I don't know why it never came up, but I was so pissed with him that I couldn't even bring myself to say, why did you change your name? Uh, and then there was a lot of scattered information. Like my mother didn't really know, people didn't really know, and they weren't sure. And I thought that was just inexcusable. Like, how can you not know this man that you procreated with? Anyway, so I finally took some time a few years ago to look this up on Ancestry or Ancestry's recent. So his name is Orantes. His name is Paul Orantes, and he went to Garfield High. Um, he was there around like the Los Lobos years and Helena Viramontes and all those people and the walkouts. He was there. Um, his stepfather was a policeman, I think, or a security guard named Charles Cooper. Um, and so at some point, my dad changed his last name to Cooper, probably in the 70s. So Francisco Orantes, I found out, is my grandfather. And he was a married man, and he was living in El Monte, and he cheated on his wife with my grandmother. He was in his mid 40s, and my grandmother was in her early 20s. So it's not been popular, but hey, I mean, so what I did was I did the DNA test, I did all the shit, and then I reached out to them, and they were upset You know, they didn't like it, but now we're very open and cool with each other. I'm going to change my name to Orantes, hopefully in the next month or so.
Okay.
And they're for it. They're all about it. They're all about this book. I'm going to write about it. So it's been cool.
Yeah. So do you know like but I mean, it's kind of like you know you got your name back, but you also like established you kind of you established a following under Vincent Cooper. Are you worried about getting the keeping the not confusing your loyal fan base?
Well, I'm going to put an asterisk on loyal fan base. I'll take all 5 of my fans with me on this journey. No, I've asked everybody privately. I've said, hey, you know, hey, I'm Sedano, hey, whoever, Abel Salas, whoever, right? You know, do you think this having Cooper is hindering me from being accepted amongst the Chicano Landia? They say no, but I really think it is a problem. That's just maybe my own paranoia, but I really feel like there's just a problem with seeing Cooper there, aside from my own personal thing. And yeah, no matter what, I'll change the name, and people are going to be like, "Hey, Coopy," you know, "Hey, Coop," and you know that there goes Cooper, and I know that won't change, so that's fine. But uh, this is something more for me, and you know, and I'm going to go through with it now that I have some spare money to do it and time and all that. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, I don't know how this works now. I don't know if I can just walk in there and you know change my name. So, but yeah, I mean, it was nice to see it. It's nice to talk to the Orantes family, who has a lot of history, and that's gonna go good with this memoir of my great grandfather, dad, who I still don't talk to and get along with, and me. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds like that's not. I mean, it sounds like they make from some good writing. So you know when a lot of these stories are very a lot of your writing is kind of very story like poems. So what kind of inspired you to write? And what inspires you to continue writing? I mean, is it just like you just like living your life, just seeing things and that, or just memories, or how did take walk us through? Like you know you get your pen, your paper, and then next thing you know you got poems. So what happens in between?
yeah, so it's definitely a lot of memories. I'm very lucky to have been to have experienced, good or bad, what I've experienced in my life. I grew up with these crazy people who were poets in many ways, and you know it was the '80s, so there was only so much I was able to catch from them. But for me, this was the time that my family was a family, and that was important to me. And my mother had to move all the time. We were very nomadic, so I never felt like I had a home. And the only thing that seemed like home was the family in San Antonio. Like they'll always be here in the heart of the West Side, and they'll just be there all the time, and that was consistent. So right around 1989, well, I met my great grandparents. I remember them and all that in the early '80s. They passed away quickly, and then the uncles started dying. They were getting killed. They were very they were suffering really bad, and their deaths triggered a lot of the writing. You know, to be talking 1 minute and then they're dead the next. And these were very powerful presence. You know, these men had big presences, and um, I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal with it, so I would write it, and I've been writing, and then the over time, you know, these other relationships that I had with the other uncles died. You know, they passed away too, so it just it was consistent. This grieving was always there, you know, and we've never really had this uh, stability again. We've never had it, so I tried to do it. I moved here. I could have lived anywhere, but I decided to move back into the West Side, have a house, and have my uncle stay with me. And they didn't want to. They wanted to just have their own little junky house. and it just never panned out. I was always there with him, and then they all passed away. So now there's really nobody. There's hardly anybody around, and you remember everything. San Antonio's very small, man. I mean, it thinks it's big, but it's really small. I can go down the street and remember conversations with uncles, final scenes, final whatever it was, whatever memories. And then I write it. I write it the best way I can, and it's really, this book kind of serves like as an elegy, for this family that once thrived, I guess, here in the West Side. Um, I've always wanted to write the story of my life, and so far it's come out in poetry, but now I'm really gonna dig deep and do the memoir, you know. So, like I said, man, I've lived through a lot. I was a Marine. People used to call me the Chicano Forrest Gump. Like this guy who was just there at every event or thing, and writing about it, basically just documenting it and putting it out there.
Tell us about Zarzamora.
Zamora is actually the street here on the west side that my family, going back probably 100 years, have lived off of, and cousins, everybody from the family. And it's a rough street. You could see, it's probably not as bad now, but time when it was a little bit rougher, a lot of drunks and a lot of easy gals, so to speak, and a lot of drugs, a lot of violence. And it's a west side street. I mean, it's a tough place, and it just feels like it's just been a constant place. I don't know who decided to live there first, but it's after the street that my family has lived off of for at least 100 years. The poems, sorry, the poems. I've always felt like I, whenever my relatives passed away, I wanted to go up and do a eulogy, but I never did. And I felt like my family would be offended if I did that. They're like, "What the fuck does he know? He's a punk kid." And they would go up and they would say something about the person who died and how they were closest to them and whatever story. And I don't even know what kept me in my seat, but I wanted to get up and say, "Damn you for dying," damn you for not giving a shit. And so then I decided to write it in this book, and it's there as a eulogy for them, and just little snapshots, really.
Yeah. So, so you published this book. What's the experience been like with this publication?
I would love to say that it's been good. So this is what happened. Uh, I submitted it everywhere, or not everywhere, but just a few places. One of A very well-known Chicano poet advised me to go to Arte Publico Press, and I said they don't publish poetry. He's like, "Tell them I said so." Okay. They rejected it faster than I submitted it, and then I messaged them again afterwards saying, "Did you really just reject it after like a minute?" And they're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay." So then I told said famous Chicano poet. They said no. He's like, "Tell them again." So I did, and it took like 7 months for them to answer back. I didn't submit it anywhere else, and they said no after all that. So I'm like, "Well, who the hell am I going to go with next?" So I went back to Aztlan. I said, "Hey, I've always wanted to be a one-man press. Let's keep it going, the relationship." And Juan said no. Said no, and I'm still pissed off about it. So then after that, you're fucked, really, because there's not that many people left. There was Veliz, books in, I don't know where they're at, and they were up and coming. There was just a couple other people, and I remember looking at Flower Song, and David Bowles was in charge of it at the time. But I think he told me like they weren't active at the moment. So then I saw Jade Publishing, and I didn't know Rossi and Gerald, but they looked young, they looked cool, I guess, and I thought maybe their networking or whatever it is that they do will do something. They seem cool, right, and impressive. So I sent it to them. I think they saw that I was friends with Norma Cantu, and they said, "Oh, well, we love Norma, and we love Norma. You must be cool. Yes, we'll take your book." And literally, like 2 days later, Edward messages me going, "Let's do it. I'm with Flower Song. Let's do it." And I'm like, "Dude, I already said yes to Jade," and we went back and forth talking shit to each other, and he's like, "Just, I can't tell you what was said, but he wanted me to, he wanted me to be with Flower Song," and I'm like, "No, well, let's just see how this goes and whatever." So literally, it was just within a day. It was crazy. Otherwise, I would have been with Flower Song. So I met them briefly, Rossi and Gerald, and it was awkward. It was a little awkward. They were nice, but it was awkward. Um, then the book came out. This wasn't the cover I chose. I wanted artwork from Valdez or Albert Alvarez. Um, they didn't do that. And then it came out. I did some readings. I did some things. I still haven't sold more, I don't even know, more than 200 copies. And I've hardly done anything, afterwards. I've been mostly fucking depressed. And now I'm at a point where like I'm fucking done with it. I'm totally fucking moving on. And I like blocked them on Facebook. I don't even want to fucking see them. And maybe later on I'll do like a reissue or republish it with artwork, with something that I want to do, and do it again. But I'm so immersed in the new manuscript that this is kind of like, it was what it was. Whoever gave a shit gave a shit. Whoever didn't give a shit didn't give a shit. And I wished it was a much bigger deal here, but it really wasn't. You know, they could have done more. They didn't do much. Now I know.
So we got some questions from the audience. It says, "Hey Primo, what's your favorite poem you've ever written?" Comes from Edward Rivas.
My cousin Ed, my baby cousin. Cousin Ed, I don't have one really. I always like the new poems. The new poems are what kind of gets me off. People have told me that they love the poem Jefe, which is about my grandfather. And actually, the poems from this fucking chapbook, I cannot fucking believe it. 8 poems are in here. And people have told me they love these poems. And that's great. I'll take it. It's the old stuff that people really like, and they message me like, "Dude, that was the shit." And I'm over here writing like this November Rain Chicano poem, ballad, thinking it's the greatest thing I've ever written, and they're like, "No, man, this 2 stanza poem is the shit." So I would say the new stuff, Edward. I love the new stuff all the time.
So another question we got, Heather Witowski asks, "Hi Vinny, this is a great interview. Can I call you the poet formerly known as Coop?"
You will have to do that, Heather. You will have to.
All right.
I love it. Yeah, for sure. I get it. The Orantes thing is going to be for me, more for my grave, and it'll look good on the next book.
Yeah. So so tell us about this next manuscript.
So right before Trump got in, I started writing about my time in the Marines, and I only did a very brief stint in the Marines. and I started writing all these poems, kind of like cadence calling, a lot of blues poems, real quick poems, and then it got out of control. I was like, kill Trump, kill Pence, kill their kids, you know. And, and I said, all right, let me put this away. I'm getting too mad, you know. And then, like all of us, we're going through this shit, and every day in the media, something, a new catastrophe. So I can't write like that. And recently, I nothing happens for me until I do a big lloron on Facebook or something, you know. Like once I say I'm fucking done, I'm quitting, people are like, "Oh, well, what do you need? You need you need an interview? You need us to write about you in the paper?" What the fuck were you before? Anyway, so I did another llorona, and then a poet reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you still have military poems?" And I said, "Fuck, I got a whole book of them." Sent him over. I sent him over. He loved them. He's being nice, but he loved them, and then I loved them, and then it just created more. I took it back off the shelf, so now this like manuscript is really going, and fuck, man, I'm digging it. Like I'm really digging it more than anything I've done before, and hoping I can wrap it up soon and start shopping it the best I can.
Well, in the meantime, where can people find your past work if they want to purchase it and have some reading during this this COVID period?
Well, they can buy Reckless through Aztlan Libre Press. Please buy it and make Juan scratch his head. I love you, Juan. Sarsamora, you can go to Jade Publishing. It's there. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom underneath everything else they've ever published. It's way, way, way in the bottom, like in the credits. And
the fine print.
The fine print, like right at the copyright, it's right there. You might be able to see it. It's a little faded. And then you can go to Jade Publishing or Amazon.
Cool.
And I still have a few copies left for anybody who's in town. I'm not going to order any more, buy any more from that book. So however you get it is how you get it.
All right. Well, Vincent Cooper, it's been a wonderful time we got to spend here together. Can you share us with like one more poem and maybe some words of wisdom?
Of course.
Or some more shit talk if you want. I mean, it's your time. You can do what you want. Anyone you haven't blasted on yet that you wanted to get in.
Dude, all day at work, I said I'm not gonna do what I just did today. This is called this is called Sepia Boys. I'm a huge Bad Religion Social Distortion fan. The kids today are gone away, petitioning the dust, with no one to look up to because they're looking up to us. Bad Religion. Cousins are across the street playing in the park with concrete turtles to sit on, steel bars to climb. A sun-scorched slide with sand at the bottom. I have ripped jeans at the knees. Park police watch brown kids sweat, laughing with friends. Grandparents, mothers, and fathers watch their children play rough. A mother, concerned, clenches her fist and yells from the screen door. Let them learn, he says. Lunch is on the stove, beans cooking slowly. The kids come back, holding hands, reaching for a manguera. Cool water from the green hose passed over mouths, water dripping from chins. Primos file into the house, boys pee into one toilet together, and primas go with ama or tia. Fingers webbed with black ligas, picture day for the familia. All of us rush into the car after. Cousin plays with the ashtray lid on the door, the squeak of open, close, a slap to that hand, a warning that some reward will be taken later. The sepia boys pose with two front teeth exposed, a brown mound of hair and eyebrows styled with mother's hands, a smile held for a momentary snap, an endearing image forever. The kids grew up to be high school dropout junkie hippies, while others worked hard for the city or served in the military, and they'd still call each other from payphones to come over and drink, spend every second they could together, or drive by with a hand gesture, beer signal. The sepia boys are mostly gone, 2D pictures to remember them all, and hot summers that burn the grass brown. Chicharas in the trees, ranting their rants. No more empty beer cans scraping across the street to the curb, or cigarette smoke that tears up the eye to a sneeze. It all ended, and some people want to know why. It's because they all finally died. We chose to let them go. It was only their body that died that day. Their spirits still walk the streets to a methadone clinic to take away their back pain. The fellas were still out on the porch drinking. In your mind, as you drove by, memories in sepia tone. It's in our DNA to suffer as it is to fight. If we choose to die or live in the dark, sepia tone boys and girls stay in boxes. They go from the house to the garage, and those pictures dust up. They fade. Spiders and roaches crawl all over them like their bodies in the ground. They die again. Do you want them to die again? Mother is a West Side original, and part of her exists in me as I write and as I live. My kids look up to me. All our kids look up to us. In adoration, we are their first heroes, their first poets, their guides that try to hide the frustrations of the world behind coffee sips and mass shootings. We love them. We find love in the cemetery of our bellies and hearts. We take it all back and have more. Don't let them kill you too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Vincent. So, any like again, here's your final opportunity. Any words of wisdom you want to share in this time of pandemic when we're all in this together, or is there anyone else you want to bang on?
Please, everybody, wear a fucking mask for fuck's sake. It is not difficult. Just wear a fucking mask. Save your grandma, save your grandpa, save a life. Fuck. That's it.
That's it. Thank you, Vincent.